which opens November 7th, just as a reminder. Thank you.
What sort of places? What sort of places? Where?
Oh, different AMC theaters.
In America.
Name some cities.
Poughkeepsie,
What's that?
Salem. I'm just thinking.
Poughkeepsie.
Yeah.
Hey, Poughkeepsie!
He's so great at really growing Poughkeepsie.
That's it, you don't have any more information for me? Well, wherever you are around the country, hello.
I just went Truth and Consequences Mexico, I heard.
There you go.
Okay. Again, thank you for this timely, vital film, and I want to start at the beginning with James, because you've obviously adapted true stories before with films like Zodiac and Truth, but this film is so unique in that it looks at this relationship between Herman Goring and Douglas Kelly. When did you first learn about the relationship, and what made you want to bring it to the screen?
It was 13 years ago. It was Jack L. High, who wrote the book Announcing the Psychiatrist, had written a book proposal to try and sell it, and it was only 5 or 6 pages long. And it was the fastest I said yes to anything in my life. It was just there was so much just in there that I didn't know. I mean, I studied Nuremberg in American history in high school, and I thought I knew a lot more than I knew. I didn't know there were psychiatrists in World War II in the U.S. Army. I didn't know what happened to the Nazi high command, who didn't kill themselves, and how they were evaluated. So this whole story sort of immediately, I really want to explore that. I really want to be in that cell with those two men, and that was the beginning of it.
Yeah, I felt guilty for not knowing so many parts of the story when I thought I did. Russell, what did you know or think you knew about the Nuremberg trials when this came your way?
Engineer, can you turn the microphone a little bit? It's rather imbalanced. I'm having to whisper. As opposed to. What did I want?
What did you know or think you knew about this case when the script came your way?
A fair bit, because, I'd sort of read about it in the past. It had been a point of interest. So, the actual minutiae and the realities, not so much, until we started on the project. But luckily for me, I signed on to do the film in 2019, and Jamie just couldn't get his shit together. So I had like 5 years of being able to slowly take in the information before the film actually got underway and in production. The great thing about a subject like this, from my perspective, my selfish actor perspective, is there's so much stuff, So I was able to find out about his childhood, where he went to school, how he was a terrible subject at a normal school, but when they put him in a military school, theoretically as a punishment, he became the top student of his class, because that's what suited him, that's what he was interested in, so that was very interesting. Also, at one point in time, this is so whack, right? I got a mate who makes guitars. That's not relevant. But it's just part of how weird this moment was. I had a mate who makes guitars, who lives near where my farm in Australia is. He went fishing 2,000 kilometers north, walked into a store, and found a book about the trials, specifically from the perspective of what Goring said, that had been written by an Australian.
Wow.
And never really properly published, but there was a copy in this shop, and he picked it up and he goes, oh, he's doing something about that, I should buy that for him. And he gave it to me, and I was like, what the hell is this? And it was incredible. It was this whole transcript of everything that Herman had said on the stand. Sort of one typed out, but then also evaluated. So that was invaluable to me, it was incredible. But then other things like, I don't know if you know what Hansard is, but from a Westminster parliamentary point of view, Hansard is the complete record of everything that's said in Parliament. And I found the German equivalent. So here he is, he's the Reichsmarshal. He's got all these guys making presentations to the Parliament, but he's in control of those conversations, and I can read how he regards people. And I found one extremely interesting chapter where he was basically calling Goebbels a moron in public. Gave you a fascinating insight into who he was. And all these things sort of happened, and then, I don't know if you guys know about the incredible drug use of the Nazi regime, which, he was partly in control of, but the actual, the order for methamphetamines and stuff that went out prior to the first invasion through the forests of Belgium and stuff, the numbers are ridiculous. So it was a grand journey in regard to discovery. It was a long answer, wasn't it? Your fucking money's broken.
And James, he joked that you took a while to get this movie made, but I do happen to know that Russell stuck with you that whole time while you're waiting to get the movie made.
He absolutely did.
And what did that mean to have him, on board, not just for his talent as an actor, but to know that he stuck with the film over all these years?
I mean, it meant everything, and your commitment to it and your desire to play a part that's not an easy part to play and to go to some pretty dark places. I remember right as we were in pre-production, you coming to me and saying, Leah, you threw a nice sort of party and you said, I'm not going to be that social because I'm going to have to kind of pull back and just work on this and really figure Herman out. So it meant everything to me. That's what you want as a director. You want actors who will give that level of commitment and time and this is an independent film. Sony Picture Classics picked it up, which is amazing. Michael Barker and Tom Bernard believed in it, but as we were making it, it was an independent film, and money comes in, money falls out, and there were many times where Russell could have called up and said, look, I love you, good luck, but this isn't going to happen. And he never did that. He never wavered.
And let me just say in return, I didn't know Jamie. I'm basing my decision purely on the quality of the script that I've read. But I know the person that's written this has got a wonderful mind, and I want to be next to that person. I want to, do the journey with a guy like that. But every single day, but all the different Nazis he's got to deal with, there was fucking Nazis everywhere. He still found time to come and see me every day, every single day, come and have a little chat. What are we doing? And we've already chatted about these things, we've rehearsed these things, we've actually sort of reshaped a few things, and we kept doing that process. Never once did it get to the point where Jamie's like, oh, I've had enough, or I'm on a roll here, or whatever. It's like every single thing was coming up. Let's just look at this again to make sure we've pulled everything out of it that we need. So from my perspective as an actor, that's a brilliant situation to be in, and you start to feel that the conversations you're having, having a real effect on what it is that you're, getting on the film. And it was a great thing. I really liked it. There were some dark days with Herman.
Sure.
I probably should apologize to Richard Saperstein, because I had really big boots, these big, heavy, sort of Luftwaffe boots, and I did kick in a few garbage cans because it did get a bit dark. But hey, that's just the cost.
I'm actually very curious about that because, as an actor, when you have to go to these dark places, your body doesn't know the difference sometimes when you're putting it through trauma. I mean, do you have a way to sort of decompress at the end of the day or the end of a shoot?
It's just rational thought.
That's hard. Rational thought, that's hard.
Well, one thing you don't want to do is try to decompress with a bottle of whiskey. I used to do that when I was a younger man. I learned the perils of that. You just got to think it through, because you do want to kind of unhook from yourself in a way, so you don't control yourself, or try and stop yourself, your instinct to stop yourself from sliding to a certain place, but you want to be in that place for certain moments, and then you just got to, the thing is, everything, like I'm saying, that process of discussing everything before you do it, that's the easiest way of getting back out of stuff, because you've really discussed it to go to that place, so you know what you're doing. You're not just, it's not freefall.
Did you sort of isolate yourself from the cast? Because I spoke to them recently, and it sounds like they were having a blast. There's a Ferris wheel. at their
There was our hotel, yeah.
Yeah, like they were riding Ferris wheels and having fun, and you were like suffering in your room, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, they put me out in a house that I like to call like Eastern European drug dealers. Basically, in a very picturesque suburb, this brutalist concrete structure. And funnily enough, I went back in the $1 billion spy,
Yeah.
and I stayed in the same place. It's just, I mean, the devil you know sort of thing. But I used to ride my bicycle to work in the morning. It was an 18-kilometer journey, part of which I had to pass by the Budapest garbage dump. And if it was a little bit warm, it was not a pleasant experience. And it had just recently been wet and it was a little bit warm, it was even less pleasant. And the worst thing was, there's this massive hill just after the garbage dump, but that's the hill that the garbage trucks drive up. So if it has been wet, then they drop this kind of juice out of the back of the trucks. And I'm going down through that river at 60 kilometers an hour on the bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that wants the shit for the role, you know?
Use that for the character?
Absolutely. Every day, it was on my mind every day. It was like, this is exactly the right place. We used to call it Turd Avenue. When you get to the top of Turd Avenue, you knew you were very close.
I do want to talk about the amazing cast you assembled, because like every member of this ensemble is flawless, and sort of what made you think of putting Russell and Rami Malek head specifically? They're so great in their scenes together.
Well, thank you very much. I always feel like casting is like cooking a little bit, and you don't want every flavor to taste the same. It's the mixture that kind of matters. And Rami, I'm an enormous fan of from Mr. Robot and Bohemian Rhapsody, and he has such an energy about him and a vibration that's different than Russell's. Is intense but different than Russell's, and so the idea of that combination sort of rubbing up against each other, and these two men who are very, very different men and are both trying to get something over on the other one, both sort of trying to calm each other in a way, but then both end up connecting in a way and affecting each other in a way, in a way that they did not anticipate. That felt really delicious to me. And then Michael Shannon, who's I think an actor's actor, and he would be the one that the younger actors were, oh my God, I can't believe I get to do a scene with Michael Shannon, who gets cast as a lot of baddies, but has this, honest sort of stoicism to him and truth to him. I just sort of felt he, as the man who's just trying to do the right thing, I thought he would be sort of brilliant in that. And then listen, you get this guy and you get those two guys, you get your phone calls returned a lot quicker.
Really?
Yeah.
I was curious about that. Once you had them locked in.
Yeah, no, and
And then he added Leo Woodall for a little sex. Oh, not to mention Mark O'Brien.
yeah, Mark O'Brien.
You would mention Mark
Excuse me.
O'Brien.
Excuse me, John Slattery.
John Slattery.
Yes. We will not stand for
yes.
this John Slattery erasure.
I'll tell you a little funny thing. I'll just jump ahead. There's that big court conversation between me and Michael, who, by the way, from my sort of humble perspective, Michael's one of the best that I've ever worked with. I love him. He's fantastic.
Yes.
A Man of Steel, and we basically spent 3 months in the gym together, working out this fight sequence we were going to do. So we had that kind of, for want of a better expression, that intimate experience together of like sweating our asses off, and working really hard physically on a thing. So there was definitely a trust between the two of us. And we were just going through the script and what have you, and I sort of noticed as we were coming towards that big sequence that they'd broken it out into 4 shooting days. So I, talked to Michael about it, and he goes, yeah, I was hoping you'd bring that up. It's like 17 pages, but there's no natural breaks. So how do we do that? It's going to be very weird doing 4 pages of this, then going home and sleeping, and then coming back the next day to do the next 4 pages, because the energy just can change, you know? And I said, well, if you're up for it, I'll discuss it with Jamie, I'll bring it up. I mean, he said, absolutely, man, that's a little bit of theatre in this movie, and we should be approaching it like that, you know? So I went to Jamie about it, and we were talking about it, and I could kind of see that there was a little glimmer glint in Jamie's eye, which is like, you know, this is what I hope for. I hope that like two actors would want to actually play this scene out in one. But, you know, as he said at the time, it would be highly irresponsible for any production company to actually schedule 17 shooting pages in a day, you know? So they hadn't done that. And, you know, I said, well, you know, I've discussed with Michael, I'm up for it, he's up for it, so it's really, you know, it's up to you. And Jamie said, well, look, you know, I had thought about this, but, you know, in discussions with everybody, we don't think that 17 pages is humanly possible. And I said, Jamie, Michael and I are from Crouton.
It is in one day.
Wow.
4 cameras, 300 extras, 25-minute takes. I've never seen that before on a movie set. I don't think I'll ever see that again on a movie set. And at the end of the first take, the 300 extras stood up and applauded. It was one of the most amazing days I've ever had.
And we did 8 full takes.
Yeah.
And they applauded every single time.
Yeah.
Which was crazy for me and Michael. But me and Michael, between each take, are just looking at each other across the room like two old gunfighters. The energy in that room was just magnificent. As a performer, you live for that sort of energy, you know?
Well, I'm curious about that because, you know, everything in this film is so spectacular, from the sets to the costumes. How much does it help you as an actor? You know, you can do all this research, then you get to sets, and you're in this immersive atmosphere, you're putting on those costumes. How does that help you, like, lock the final character in place?
Well, it's always, you know, it's a funny thing, because when I was a younger fellow, I used to sort of have all these pretensions about what the internal sort of machination of a character. But as you get a little bit older, you realize, you know, if somebody wants you to play a pirate, get a fucking eye patch. Halfway down the street. So, you know, having a uniform like, you know, ones that Herman used to wear is a very big calling to you that, you know, it's time to go to work. But yeah, the whole atmosphere on that film, you know, we have a producer on this film, which is Satisfying, right? And I really don't think, you know, in at least, you know, the last decade or two, that I've had the experience of a producer who really takes on the responsibility of a curator. You know, who knows that there's all these different individual parts. It's like a sort of a, you know, a specialist mechanic. You know, you can do a combustion engine in an old Vauxhall Viva or whatever, but it's going to be very different from a combustion engine in a Ferrari. You're going to have a little bit more detail at your fingertips. And I just felt that he placed everybody in the right situation. You know, whether it was Rami or whether it was Michael or whether it happened to be the production designer or the DP or whatever, he had time for everybody. And because of that, the process, even though we were going to these dark places, the process was always friendly. You know, and it was always like he knew that everybody was there pushing in the right direction. So all he had to do was just clear their way and make that, you know, their effort count. So that's a pretty special thing. And that was very cool.
You mentioned that this took you 13 years to make, and I'm sorry about that, but I'm also a big believer in things happening when they happen for a reason. And obviously this film couldn't be timelier. You've been, you know, traveling around the world with it, and I've seen how people respond to it. You know, how does it feel to be releasing it in this time, and what have the conversations been like with audiences?
I mean, I'm just so happy it's coming out. First of all, 13 years is a long time, and you know, I love the conversations that are coming from audiences, and I love what people are taking away from it. And you know, when I first wrote it back then, I thought it was timely then, and I definitely feel it's timely now, and I think it's, you know, unfortunately probably going to be timely in the future. I also, you know, the movies I love are timeless. You know, this is about something that happened 80 years ago, in a moment where all of these nations came together and did the hard thing and chose justice over vengeance. And I think that's you know, an important lesson that you know, we never want to forget. But I also think that You know, there's something, you know, really wonderful. I think you have to look to the past in order to move towards the future. And I think that's a timeless lesson.
Mm-hmm. Russell, for you, I believe you went to Toronto with this film. Have you been speaking to audiences much, or have you seen the response it's been getting?
Yeah, I saw it once in Toronto with an audience, and I watched it the other night here in LA with an audience. The first time I saw it was on like a little tiny TV in a bar down in the bush.
Now you're breaking my heart.
No, whatever filmmaker wants to
It was
hear.
so affecting seeing it, you know, that way. And then the next time I saw it was on this gigantic screen in Toronto, and looking around the audience, because one of the things that I love to do in a movie, which is probably because of my job, as opposed to you guys, you like to go see films. I like to watch you watch movies.
Yep.
And in that audience in Toronto, just sort of having a quiet little look around, everybody was riveted. And that was a very exciting thing, you know, on behalf of me and the other actors and the filmmakers, to see an audience being so taken with the work that we've done.
I was saying, I had no idea this movie was almost 2.5 hours. It feels like 90 minutes. It zips by, and it's funny in places. I hope that's okay.
Yeah.
And I suppose you needed that levity on set and in the script.
I always think you do. I mean, listen, my favorite dramas are funny. I mean, Goodfellas is hysterical, you know, and I also think I think that's real. The line was.
What's the other way of taking it?
The line was, I have to say, the line was, "I never want to see you again." And John said, "I think it's, don't take this the wrong." I said, go with God, Johnny. You got this one.
Well, I want to ask if everyone can stay seated while they get out of here, because they do have more of these to do. But I want to remind everyone that this movie will be in theaters in Poughkeepsie, November 7th. Please spread the word. It's such a special film. Thank you for being a wonderful audience.
Awesome.